Hello guys, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'll be talking about the basics of Python and what tools you can use to help you code in Python better. For example, IDEs and stuff like that. But let's just get started. First, you need to download the latest version of Python and some good IDE like JetBrains PyCharm instead of using the basic idle interface because it's honestly not that great. So I'll leave a link in the description to those two items, but let's just get started. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new project, and let's call it My First Python. My First Python. So let's just click Create right there, and we're going to click Close. And you'll notice there are no files in here, so the first thing you're going to have to do after creating the project, you're going to have to go to File and click New, and let's call this a Python file, and let's call it our main.py file, py, that's the extension for Python files. Okay, so we're left with our blank IDE here, along with our project view on the left, and some tools like the terminal in the bottom, the Python console, and stuff like that. But for now, let's just type print, print, let's just say hello world. That's going to be our basic command. What the print function actually does, it doesn't print out something, it actually just outputs something in the Python console. I'll open that right now. So here we have the print command, and it's going to output hello world in the console. I can show you that by running our program right now. So let's go to run, click run, and click our main file in here, and here it outputted hello world in the console, as I said before, and the process finishes with exit code 0, which means it was a successful process. So we've learned how to print out statements, and this is useful for debugging if you're making some sort of bigger program and you want to see if something went wrong or something. You just want to know something. This is very useful for that. But let's go on to something a little bit more complicated, and that's going to be called an input. What an input does is it prompts you to enter something like information. For example, I'm just going to put enter something in this input prompt right here. And if we run this, like right now, hello world, enter something, and let's enter random gibberish, and it doesn't do anything, which means this input is useless. A way to make this input useful, though, is to create something called a variable. A variable is something that stores information from an object. So let's just create something called a variable called my input, and put an equal sign and put a couple spaces in between them. And here we have input, enter something, and nothing happens at first. I could just type random gibberish and nothing will happen, but that's because the value hasn't even been used yet. So if we wanted to use the value, we'd have to make a statement called print my input. So the basic structure here is it takes your input and outputs the input into the console, which means you can see your input or whatever you typed in the console. So let's type random gibberish again and see if that works. And as you can see, it outputted the exact same random gibberish that I put in. So that's how the input function works, and variables take the data from the input function, and the print function takes the data from my input and outputs it into the console. Okay, now I'm gonna Now I'm gonna delete this first hello world thing because I'm pretty sure you already know how to print stuff out. So let's create something called an if statement. So let's say, I'm also gonna remove this because I'm gonna show something else in the process. So if my input is equal to, you're gonna have to put two equals here because you're comparing something with another thing. So you're gonna have to have two equals there. So if my input is equal to, I don't know, a string called propane 865, then it's gonna automatically indent, and you're always supposed to indent when you're putting commands in some sort of loop, like in an if statement. So it's gonna print propane 865 is, and I'm gonna add a space because we're about to append our input, my input, to the statement. We're appending one string to another. So let's just put my input here, and let's run this. And we're gonna do run main. So let's just put random gibberish. Yeah, the random gibberish didn't work because it only detects if the, it only detects that, this is a conditional statement. It only works if the input is propane 865. So if we run this again, and if we type in propane 865, then it should return propane 865 is propane 865, which is true but doesn't make sense. But it's just a random string, I guess. So that's basic a basic usage of if statements. Another thing that might be useful in Python is a for loop. So let's say for I, meaning I equals index, I is the index, for I in the range of how many ever times you want to repeat this loop. Let's say for I in range 10, and we put a colon, and we go down, print, let's print our input. So what this is going to do is it's going to print our input 10 times. So let's run this and see what happens. So let's enter something like 0, 1, 2, 3. That'll do. So what it did is it printed, outputted 0, 1, 2, 3, 3 through 3 10 times in 10 lines. So that's basically what a for loop does. It works well if you wanted to do an action for a limited amount of times, but you still wanted to repeat it. If you wanted to do the action for an unlimited amount of times, or based on a condition, you might be better off with the while loop. So let's make something called let's make a variable. Let's make a new variable. So let's make t equal to, this is going to be a timer, a simple timer that I'm going to be making. That's going to count down from 10, I guess, in a very short amount of time. So what we're going to do is while t is less than or equal to 10, that's the conditional statement for if you wanted to say if something is less than or equal to a certain value. So while t is less than or equal to 10, then do a certain command, print my input, and we're also going to subtract 1 from t. So what we're going to do is put t minus equals, so this is basically the same thing as reassigning the value of t to t minus 1, and a shorthand way of representing this is t minus equals 1. So let's give that a save and run it. So let's enter 10. Oh, that didn't work as expected, not at all. Actually, it did work as expected, sorry about that. So, while t is less than or equal to 10, and if it was going to negative infinity, it didn't stop at 0, so what I was going to do is make an AND statement. AND means AND connects two conditional statements, and if both of them are true, it'll run the following command. So while t is less than or equal to 10, and t is greater than or equal to 0, then it'll do this. It's the same thing as repeating something 10 times. As you can see, it repeated it 10 times before t was equal to 0. So when t reached 0, the whole program stopped. So that's the basic use of while loops, but while loops can be used in conditional statements, we can also use them for something else. While true. While true, this is an infinite loop, and it's going to, and what I'm going to do in here is t minus equals 1. Actually I'm going to do t plus equals 1. It's the same thing as minus equals, except it adds 1 instead of subtracts 1. So if t plus equals 1, and then print t's value. So what we're going to do is we're going to print t. So let's give that a save, and let's run it. So it's something, enter something like, as you can see, it's going up rapidly, really big amounts. It's going up to million in just a few seconds, so I'm going to stop that right there. By the way, exit code -1 means the process was stopped by the user. And while true, t plus equals 1. Let's make it more controlled. Now let's talk about an import. An import is just something. An import is just a statement that tells the Python compiler to import a library, like for example time. Sorry, my alarm went out. Import time. Import time. That's gonna import the time library, and there are some functions in here. For example, sleep. Sleep is a function of the time library. It tells the Python compiler to stop all actions for a specified amount of time in seconds. So if we wanted to do sleep 1, actually I forgot to do time.sleep here. Sorry about that. Time.sleep 1 second. If the Python compiler stopped for 1 second in a infinite loop, then we'd have something like this: 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. You see, it's not as rapid as before. In fact, it's way slower than before, but this is basically for controlling how many times a second, how many times an action can occur within a specified amount of time. For example, if we made this like an insanely large number and we run this again, then it just returns an error saying that the sleep length is too large. And of course it's too large. It's like 10 million seconds. That's more than like a lot of days, almost a week, I think. So we're gonna leave time.sleep 1 in there. And don't forget, we can also take our input and we can put it in this while true loop, and it'll ask us for an input every time these set of commands are called. And yeah, it's going to take some time off and then ask you to enter something else. preferably preferably 10, or if you can enter something else and overflow the compiler, I guess. That's a good idea, I guess. And there you have it. That's a basic overview on Python for beginners. Thanks for watching, and like and subscribe for more videos.